All right, so we're diving into Psalm 35 today, and wow, um, right off the bat, you get this really powerful plea for help. It's like someone crying out in the middle of some serious opposition.
Yeah, you really get thrown right into the thick of things with Psalm 35. It's raw and it's immediate. You can practically feel the psalmist's desperation.
It's intense, for sure.
Uh-huh.
So in this deep dive, let's try to unpack it all. What's at the heart of this psalmist's struggle? What's their emotional journey like? And ultimately, where do they find hope?
Exactly. It's a chance to connect with some pretty universal human experiences, dealing with conflict, and finding strength and faith, things like that.
So let's start with the first few verses. Verses 1 through 3. The language is supercharged with action, right? Oppose those who oppose me. Fight those who fight against me. Put on your armor and take up your shield. It's like a divine battle cry. What jumps out at you about this forceful plea right from the start?
Well, first of all, it's interesting how the psalmist immediately turns to God for intervention, and not just in like a passive please help kind of way, but in this really active, almost aggressive way, demanding action.
Hmm.
The psalmist wants God to step into the fight like a warrior.
Yeah, you definitely get that warrior vibe, especially with all that imagery of armor, shield, and spear. It's like the psalmist sees this threat as something huge and hostile, like they're totally vulnerable.
Right, and that kind of language suggests this isn't just a petty squabble to the psalmist, this is a battle with some really high stakes, maybe even life or death.
And then in verse 3, there's that specific request. Let me hear you say, I will give you victory.
Yeah.
That feels like a major clue about the psalmist's state of mind,
Right.
right? They're not just asking for help. They need some serious reassurance.
Absolutely. That need to hear that confirmation that God's on their side and that victory is coming speaks volumes about their anxiety. They're clinging to the promise of divine favor, and they desperately need some kind of tangible proof in the middle of all this chaos.
And then the tone shifts pretty dramatically in verses 4 through 8, doesn't it? Suddenly we hear these really intense desires for the enemies to fall flat on their faces. There's talk of shame, disgrace, humiliation, even being scattered like dust in the wind. It's pretty raw emotion right out in the open.
It is, and it's important to acknowledge that raw emotion. The psalmist is hurting. They're deeply wronged, and they're expressing a very human desire to see those who hold them face consequences. The imagery of being blown away like chaff, it suggests complete and utter defeat, like being stripped of any power or significance.
Yeah, it's powerful. And then there's that idea of a dark, slippery path and God chasing them down. It creates this sense of unavoidable judgment. It really makes you think about how strong feelings of injustice can lead us to wish for some pretty harsh outcomes on those we see as our enemies.
Yeah, it's a glimpse into that dark side of human nature. I mean, we've all probably felt that urge at some point, even if we wouldn't act on it.
And there's that recurring image of the trap and the pit. They laid a trap for me. They dig a pit to catch me. And then wanting them to fall into their own traps. It seems to say a lot about the kind of opposition the psalmist is up against.
Definitely. The trap and the pit imagery suggests a level of premeditation and malice. Like it wasn't just a disagreement, it was a deliberate attempt to cause harm through deception. It's sneaky, it's underhanded, and that desire to see them hoisted by their own petard, it's like a primal longing for poetic justice. You know what they say, what goes around comes around.
Right. It's like they're saying, you tried to trick me now, let's see you get tangled in your own web.
Exactly.
Something that really stands out is how often the psalmist declares their own innocence. Throughout this outpouring, they keep saying things like in verse 7, I did them no wrong. And later in verses 11 and 12, we hear about malicious witnesses and being repaid with evil for good. This feeling of being unjustly targeted seems like a key part of their plea.
Absolutely. That claim of innocence is the foundation of their appeal to God. It's like they're saying, I don't deserve this. I'm the one who's been wronged. And the mention of false accusations and people twisting their good deeds into something evil that just amplifies the sense of betrayal. You can only imagine how agonizing it would be to act with integrity only to be slapped in the face with lies and harm. It makes you think about how those kinds of experiences shape our faith and our view of the world.
Yeah, it really does. And then the way the enemies react to the psalmist's troubles in verses 15 and 16, it's so unsettling. They're described as being gleeful, ganging up on the psalmist, spreading slander. Even strangers are mocking. And there's this almost animalistic snarling. It's a pretty disturbing picture of their character.
It really is. It paints them as more than just opponents. They seem to relish in the psalmist's suffering, which makes it all the more cruel. And the fact that even outsiders pile on suggests a sense of total isolation for the psalmist, Like the whole world is against them. The snarling adds to that image of viciousness, almost dehumanizing them in a way.
And in verses 20 and 21, we get a glimpse of their deceitful nature and their triumphant but probably phony accusations. They don't talk of peace. They plot against innocent people who mind their own business. And then that taunting, aha, aha, with our own eyes we saw him do it, even though the psalmist insists they're innocent.
Right. It exposes their hypocrisy and the fact that their accusations are likely fabricated. Their goal isn't peace or truth. It's just plain malice. Those cries of, aha, even when they know the psalmist is innocent, reveal how much they enjoy seeing them suffer and how eager they are to condemn. It adds a whole other layer to the injustice. The psalmist isn't just hurting, they're being smeared and misrepresented.
It creates such a stark contrast with verses 13 and 14, where the psalmist talks about how they used to treat these same enemies with compassion when they were sick, grieving for them, fasting, praying for them like they were close friends or family. The difference is astounding.
It's a really powerful contrast. It highlights the psalmist's own moral compass, their capacity for empathy, even for those who are now turning on them. And that makes the betrayal cut even deeper. It makes you think about how we react when people we've cared for turn against us. It can be devastating.
All of this emotional turmoil and this deep sense of injustice leads to that renewed and desperate plea for God to step in verses 17 and 22 and 23. Yeah. The psalmist is at their breaking point, crying out, "How long, O Lord, will you look on and do nothing?" And then those direct pleas, rescue me, protect my life. Do not stay silent. Do not abandon me. Wake up, rise to my defense. It's the raw outpouring of someone who feels utterly helpless.
Yeah, it's a cry from the depths of despair. The psalmist feels abandoned and overwhelmed. That repeated, "Oh Lord," emphasizes how directly they're appealing to God and how much they still believe in God's power to intervene, even though their faith might be strained. All those urgent questions and commands convey a sense of immediacy, like, I can't take it anymore, I need you now. It's heart-wrenching. But even in the midst of this desperate plea, there's this underlying thread of hope and anticipation for justice and praise. We see it in verses 9 and 10 and in verse 18 with talk of rejoicing in the Lord, being glad, and promising to praise God with their whole being before the whole community. It's not just about personal deliverance. It's about public vindication.
You're right. That desire for public vindication suggests the accusations have tarnished their reputation within the community. And the vow to praise God with every bone in my body, that's a powerful expression of gratitude and a testament to God's faithfulness. It's like they're saying, when you deliver me, God, I'm going to shout it from the rooftops. And that public acknowledgement of God's intervention wouldn't just restore the psalmist's honor, it would also serve as a powerful testimony for others to see. And there are those specific requests, like in verse 24, declare me not guilty, for you give justice, in the hope that their supporters will experience great joy and keep saying, great is the Lord who delights in blessing his servant with peace. It's this vision of not just individual rescue, but a restoration of order and righteousness for everyone involved.
Exactly. The psalmist wants justice to prevail, not just for themselves, but for everyone who's been affected by this conflict. That vision of great is the Lord becoming a constant refrain highlights the ultimate goal, the glorification of God through the resolution of this whole mess. And that longing for peace is so important. It speaks to a deep desire for an end to the chaos and a return to harmony and security.
And then the psalm ends with that resolute promise in verse 28. Then I will proclaim your justice, and I will praise you all day long. It brings this sense of closure and an unshakable faith, even if the immediate threat hasn't necessarily disappeared within the text itself.
It's a powerful statement of trust and commitment. It's like the psalmist is saying, no matter what happens, God, you are just, and I will spend my life proclaiming that truth. It provides a sense of resolution and reinforces the psalm's central message of unwavering faith, even when things are tough.
So when we step back and look at the big picture, the core themes that really shine through in Psalm 35 are this profound experience of unjust opposition, the raw emotional distress. It causes this persistent, unwavering faith in divine justice, and that hopeful anticipation of vindication leading to public praise.
You got it. It's a timeless and powerful portrayal of human vulnerability in the face of conflict, combined with this deep spiritual conviction that justice will ultimately win. It reminds us that these kinds of struggles, these emotions, they're a part of what it means to be human.
As we wrap up this deep dive into Psalm 35, it really gets you thinking. Even though this is an ancient text from a totally different world, how do its raw expressions of conflict and unwavering faith speak to the challenges people face today? What do you take away from it?
That's the big question, isn't it? While the specific historical and cultural context is unique to the psalmist, The feelings they express being wronged, yearning for fairness, struggling against those who act with malice, searching for hope in something bigger than ourselves. These are things we all grapple with. Psalm 35 reminds us that these struggles are nothing new. It invites us to think about how we respond when we face adversity and where we turn for hope when we're up against opposition, even in our modern world.
It's a powerful reminder that even across centuries and cultures, certain human experiences remain timeless. The pain of injustice, the longing for vindication, and that unwavering faith in the face of darkness. These are threads that weave through the tapestry of human history, connecting us all in ways we might not always realize.
It's a humbling thought, isn't it?
It really is. Well, folks, that's our deep dive into Psalm 35. Thanks for joining us.
Always a pleasure.
Until next time, keep seeking, keep exploring, and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely. And remember, even in the darkest moments, there's always hope to be found.
Well said. Thanks again.
See you next time.
Bye, everyone.